Hey guys, Zibboyeye or just Zib is fine, and today, we're going on a witch hunt. In this episode, we're looking at the film that gave rise to the finding of footage, the Blair Witch Project. From inception to deception to reception, the Blair Witch Project, which I will abbreviate to the Blair Witch, is a one of a kind in the history of film. Even out of the wave of movies it influenced, the Blair Witch has withstood the test of time as a classic. How is that? Well, let's start with the origin. Beginning at the University of Central Florida, 1993, then film students Dan Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez were discussing horror movies, reminiscing about what got them shaking as kids. They both agreed documentaries of the mysterious and unusual dug under their skin most. This would serve as the impetus for the Blair Witch. Alongside fellow student Greg Hale, the two formed Haxon Films. However, it would be a few years before the team got the ball rolling on the project. In 1996, Greg Hale was hanging out with friend and fellow filmmaker Ben Rock when Hale elaborated on the concept, but not without a little drama. Ed's friends decided to make a documentary about the Blair Witch 2 years ago. But the crazy part is that while they were making it, they disappeared in the woods. So a year later, their footage turned up, buried under an old house. Dan, Ed, and I are going to analyze that footage. Rock could only utter, "You guys are gonna fucking die." Until Hale spilled the beans, it was all fake. Ben Rock would be the first person fooled by the Blair Witch. Like love at first sight, Rock begged to be on the project, to Hale's approval. Rock was first assigned to fleshing out the lore and story. Haxon Films then made a proof of concept reel that would air on the indie film channel Split Screen August 15th, 1997. The show paid Haxon around $25,000, which made for their shooting budget. In October 1997, with small script in hand, Myrick and Sanchez would direct this experimental production. Following principal photography, Haxon had to finish their second segment for Split Screen, which aired April 1998. Unable to handle the mass of intrigued viewers on his website, John Pearson, host of Split Screen, suggested Haxon publish their own website for the movie. Haxon decided to center their site around the in-world legend and missing filmmakers. This became one of the first ARGs, and one that many people at the time bought. Actors were listed as dead on IMDb, the lead's mother received sympathy cards, and wannabe witch hunters flooded the real-world town of the movie. It's funny to think this found footage fooled numerous viewers. That would never happen today. Even so, I believe the film's luster lasts. So let's roll camera and look at the Blair Witch Project. The movie follows young filmmakers Heather Donahue, Josh Leonard, and Mike Williams, all named after their respective actor, setting out to Burkittsville, Maryland to document their investigation into the Blair Witch legend. However, when the trio finds themselves lost in the woods, they must survive friendships turned hostile and what may lie beyond the darkness. I'm attached to the premise straight away. For most of my life, I've lived near woods. The forest is like a shadow, you don't know what's in there. The horror and setting felt close to home for me. The movie opens with a set of interviews. Most interviewees were planted actors. All of the citizens' dialogue was ad-libbed, though they were instructed to acquaint themselves with some information. This applies to all but Susie Gooch, who thought she was merely helping students with an assignment.
And I taught for Frederick County Public Schools at the time, and I felt bad for them because I was like, geez, these poor kids are doing this project. So the teacher in me, I went to her and I said, yeah, I'll help you. I'll be on camera, I'll help you. And I just literally made up everything on the spot.
Her interview is likely the best. During Susie's story, her daughter has a breakdown.
No!
And they disappeared off the face of the earth.
No!
Really?
Okay, it's all right, Ingrid. I'm just telling a scary story, but it's not true.
You can't recreate that, it's such a candid interaction. The main cast too were given little direction and no script. This prioritizes reactionary and in-the-moment acting that sells the film's realism. The actors were dedicated to their roles. The three tried to stay in character at all times. They could only break scenario and contact production using a safe word. But a safe word can't do much when the film crew's radio runs out of battery. Which it did one pouring night when Heather, Mike, and Josh had to scramble out of the woods to the nearest house to phone production for help. Their struggles weren't limited to accidents, though. Greg Hale met with the actors, warning, "We're very concerned about your safety, just not your comfort," alluding to the production's total immersion tactic. In one scene, Josh gripes,
I'm just tired, I'm hungry, I'm just fucking done, man.
This is not a lie. In daylight, the actors were given dwindling amounts of rations. Come nightfall, Sanchez, Hale, Merrick, and Rock would scare the bejesus out of the cast. Actors and directors usually employ what is called given circumstances. In other words, they analyze backstory and setting to assess an accurate portrayal of the character. However, this is scarcely required when the actors become their character, fear and all. Using this method approach, Heather, Mike, and Josh immediately understood their given circumstances. This immersion brought to life the characters and their struggles. Yet, that conflict was nearly understated. The woods exploration was planned to occupy only a third of the movie that would be cut between segments detailing legend. By the end, however, that third rose to nearly 90%. This change was essential in making this a movie. The documentary opening is perfect for the exposition of a first act, while the young filmmakers losing themselves kicks off the second act as the story's conflict. The film neatly forms to the constructs of narrative. The content, too, makes for an engaging movie. The characters pushed and pulled at my emotions. At first, I distrusted Mike. His loud, hot-tempered mannerisms intimidated me.
If we keep our heads together, we'll be just fine.
Fucking bullshit! Mike, chill.
Just relax, Mike.
Don't fucking tell me to relax!
However, later when Josh is losing his grip, Mike is considerate and compassionate.
We need to go.
Leave him alone for 5 minutes.
Mike.
Just leave him alone. 5 minutes. Come on, he's lost it.
Each character shows vitriol as well as vulnerability. This not only creates a winding emotional journey, but well rounds the characters. So the story is solid, but what about the scare factor? The horror empowers the word of mouth. In fact, the interviewee Mary, played by Patricia DeCoux, was chosen for that reason. Patricia was hired as Ben Rock's intern. Rock discovered she had a talent for weaving bizarre tales. Knowing she would make the perfect Mary, Rock pitched Patricia for the role, resulting in her inclusion. The narration and interviews devoted to the town's mythology laid a creepy backdrop. The dialogue allowed me to paint the disturbing imagery in my head, while the ambiguity leaves a mystery that quickly drew me in. Sometimes what was meant to be on display, the cameras ended up missing. During one chase, an actor was planted in the distance, meant to appear as an apparition. Though missed by the camera, this scare did not go unnoticed by Heather.
Oh my god, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that?
Moments like this made me feel unsafe. Even if you don't see anything, there's this sense of being watched. Regarding film, many preach show, don't tell. Blair Witch, though, demonstrates how the art of storytelling can enhance a movie. That's not to say it's all talk. The scares become progressively more visual. Its early restraint gives these moments punch. But it's never too showy, retaining its grounded tone. The ending, you probably already know, even if you haven't seen the movie, but I'll tag this as spoilers out of courtesy. So, skip if you must, otherwise, let's get to it. After Josh has gone missing, Heather and Mike were left to explore the woods as a pair. The two stumble upon a dilapidated house. Mike enters the basement before he is attacked from behind. When Heather runs into the basement, she is met with Mike motionlessly staring into the corner until she too is forced to the ground, the footage cutting there. A simple ending that distributor Artisan was not too happy with. Artisan dropped cash on a reshoot. Rock speculates Artisan's payment likely exceeded that of the original shoot, which explains how the budget inflated from $25,000 to $60,000. Back to the scene of the crime, the team reunited with Mike and filmed 4 alternate endings. All close with Heather incapacitated, but the preceding events diverge. One is the exact same as the original ending, but with stick figures strewn around. If I had worked on this movie, I would have been insulted if Artisan said, "That's what your scene was missing, some twigs, that'll scare him." Another end features Mike staring at Heather menacingly. There's one with a hanging Mike. Then finally one in which Mike is hanging on a stick man, surrounded by similar charms. Once again appealing to the stick horror fandom. To close the film on any of these finales would have been a travesty. These endings, especially the bloodier ones, grasp at straws for whatever imagery to throw at the audience in a desperate attempt for screams. I'm thankful Sanchez and Myrick stuck to their guns and urged Artisan to use the original conclusion. And also, it's kind of funny Artisan wasted over $25,000 on footage it didn't even use. The final scene is iconic for a reason. It calls back to the beginning. Interviews detail a man named Rustin Parr. Parr, possibly under the influence of the Blair Witch, kidnapped several children. He led his victims into his basement in pairs. Parr then offed one child while the other faced the corner. Which brings me to the finale's ambiguity. There's enough information to theorize, but nothing deductive. The theory I'm most fond of is that Josh killed both Heather and Mike. The murder resembles that of Parr's victims. So were Parr and Josh both possessed by the Blair Witch, it follows suit they would use the same methods. If this theory is true, it means that Josh pulled out his own teeth. So how you perceive the story strengthens the horror. And that's just one theory. The discussion this open-endedness encourages extends the life of the movie. Suffice it to say, the Blair Witch Project chilled me to my core. The marketing and cinematography was revolutionary. Via off-the-wall techniques, the movie crafted a strong verisimilitude. The characters' descent through turmoil torn me between distrust and empathy. All this through a simple yet anxiety-inducing premise, closing with a masterful ending. With word spreading, it's no surprise the movie caught fire. Though its first 2 weeks were slow, its third weekend spiked to a $29 million attendance. By the end of its theatrical run, The Blair Witch had amassed $140 million. Not a bad profit from its $60,000 investment. While several lauded the film's subtle yet effective horror, others watched in confusion to its acclaim and budget.
And everybody talk about, ooh, it only cost $60,000. Where the hell did all the money go?
I suppose some followed the hype expecting to see big jumps and overt thrills one would expect to see on the big screen. But The Blair Witch was not made with mainstream filmgoers in mind. Its creators didn't even think it would go beyond home video. No one on the team was prepared for how successful their work would be. They just stumbled upon it, reaping reward and rebuke from audiences. But I think the attention it garnered was more than deserved. I am overjoyed that this small movie had the opportunity to achieve the huge stature it has. The Blair Witch Project shows just how little you need to make a perennial masterpiece. I've been Zibboyeye, or just Zib is fine, and thank you for watching. Zibbo bye bye!